I see people's faces at the farmers market. They're grateful, they're happy, they're healthy. They come back and they say, oh, your product changed my life.
This is The Producers. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Byron Fermentary is a creation of Katerina Lazareva, a trained chef living, farming and making in Byron Bay, Australia. It is the manifestation of her experience and ancestral traditions in a range of unique fermented products made from seasonal organic produce.
Hello, my name is Katerina. I'm the founder of Byron Fermentary, a unique closed-loop operation based at the farm in Byron Bay, which is a collective of growers and makers in Byron Bay. It's a beautiful project that helps young entrepreneurs, young farmers to pursue good things with a regenerative approach. So I was invited there a few years ago, and I set up a small permaculture garden there. And they gave me a little kitchen so I could make my beautiful ferments. It's actually a really beautiful area, very open-minded. So that's why I moved here from Sydney. Was looking for people who would understand me, would understand what I want to do. It's really open-minded, it's slightly alternative, but in a good way. And there is an abundance of beautiful produce. But as I said before the floods, now we've all been struggling. It's finally getting back on track. But yeah, the weather hasn't been nice to us.
After awakening from a strange dream about chefing, Katerina packed her bags and headed to Australia.
I'm 37, so I had several careers in my life. And I started with, I worked on television in the public relations department, and then moved to sales, and then made my career in there. And then I opened my own media buying agency. So nothing really connected to food. But I was living in London at the time, and I wasn't very happy. I had everything I wanted, but it wasn't meaningful enough for me. So I was just asking the universe over and over on, okay, what's my next step? And then one night I had a dream, and I was cooking in a beautiful kitchen. Then later I realized it was Rockwool Bar and Grill, where I worked later. And I'm just in this beautiful chef's white jacket, and there is an Australian flag on it. It was really random, but I woke up knowing that I will be doing that. And in 3 months, I moved to Australia and signed in with TAFE, commercial cookery course. And yeah, I just burned all the bridges and moved to Australia. It was 12 years ago.
After burning out as a chef, Katerina looked for alternate ways to approach her craft.
I'm a professional chef who spent years in professional kitchens in Sydney before I started Byron Fermentary 6 years ago. Long story short, I burnt out after working in fast-paced environment and service kitchens, and went to India to look for peace and some answers. I come from an interesting background. I'm Russian who was born in Kazakhstan, and where my family in 1950s was exiled to live in a labor camp. They were victims of Stalin's regime. And so sustainability, or what I call regeneration of food, runs in my family. So when I went to India, I was just absolutely shocked on how little people need, and of the lack of the nutrition in their diets. And it was all life-changing experience for me. So I did the math, and I was searching for answers. What do I do next? And I did the math, and ended up my cultural background, my professional chef skills, my my strive to do this planet better, and it's just all came down to fermented foods. And I didn't start that business straight away. I moved to the area. I was invited into a project to open the restaurant first, and I was just trying to find my ground. And I started to grow produce in a little garden, in community garden. And it's just like the puzzle started to come together. And then I was invited to the farm, and I set up a bigger garden. And yeah, I thought, this is the best I can give to this world, considering of all the factors. And it's one of the best things that I can produce, and one of the most needed things for the humanity at the moment.
Fermenting isn't just about what ends up in a jar. As Katerina explains, there are many challenges in her unique approach.
So many challenges, because I am a grower as well. So that's the big challenge that comes in consistency and relying on the crops, relying on the weather. Is a huge challenge, but I keep doing it, and this is my 6th year in business, and I keep doing it. I'm very persistent because I truly believe in what I do. I truly believe that every day I change the world for a better place. But as different challenges come with fermented food business as well, because it's also quite inconsistent in terms of production. When you ferment vegetables in a natural way, which is also called wild, right? Not relying on powders and cultures and things like that a lot of commercial manufacturers use. Every batch becomes very different, and it leads to inconsistency. and they also are quite alive, so it's very difficult to transport and things like that. So that's why I truly believe that fermented vegetables can't be a commercial big business, and they need to reflect the region and what's in season. So that's why, and I've been trying to educate my community for so long now that we eat what the earth gives us. The same as we go to the farmer's market and we buy vegetables that are available in the season. The same happens with fermented vegetables. And that's the challenge, because in Australia, fermented food was introduced as sauerkraut, which is a cabbage-based product. And it was a big challenge for me as a grower, because cabbage grows in the rivers only for 3-4 months a year. So as a chef, I started to bring other things, fermented mushrooms, fermented green papaya, which grows beautifully in subtropical area, and introduce different recipes. And I really struggled in the beginning because people didn't understand me. They didn't understand what I do. It's getting better now. And there is a big cabbage crisis in Australia, so I'm in a good position because big commercial sauerkraut brands had to cut down.
According to Katerina, the benefits of fermented foods are little known, but as sustainability becomes vital, so too will our reliance on fermented products.
This is not just the most ancient food, and not just the most ancient way to preserve food, but it's also the way to move forward, because we just have to eat fermented foods for several reasons. First, it's the unique source of probiotics that are essential for the optimal health. Second, looking at what's happening in the agriculture, how the soils are depleted with nutrients by chemical inputs, by the weather, by rain. I'm just, more and more I realize that every year that we will just have to add a little bit of fermented food in our diet, just because we will have to increase the nutrient and mineral content that we're not getting from the vegetables, because fermenting vegetables increase vitamins in the vegetables for at least 30%. And also makes the so it increases the vitamin content for at least 30%, but also helps us to make the other food more, make the nutrition from other food more bioavailable. So adding a little bit of sauerkraut in your diet, what you do is you're making sure you absorb the nutrients from the other food much better. So think about that. Moving forward, we won't have as much beautiful food because it's just the topsoil is going. So it's just the way it is. It's a fact. And prices are increasing as well. So what do we do to get as much from little? We add fermented food. So it's an incredible solution. Not the only solution, but it's an important thing that we will all have to do. And especially just an average Australian family with a low income will have to introduce some sauerkraut in their diet.
There are many vegetables that can be fermented, but Katerina follows the season and grows her own produce. It's
seasonal, so cabbage and different brassicas come in winter, so that's the end of the season right now. And then we're planting a whole bunch of radishes for summer. Lots of fruit in summer in this area, pineapples and mangoes. Radish is surprisingly my main ingredient. As I said, people think cabbage is the only thing that can be fermented. But in subtropics, in northern rivers, this cabbage doesn't really naturally grow here really well. I use radish as the base for my recipes most of the time. Fennel grows here really well. Bits and pieces, different things.
There are many ways to ferment produce, and Katerina applies many techniques depending on the intended outcome.
There are different types of fermentation. I apply different ones in my operation. One of them is Locke fermentation, and that's how all vegetables and fruit are fermented. It takes about 2-3 weeks, depending on where you are and what kind of climate you have. But what you need for that is just the salt, right? And it's just ferments naturally in no oxygen environment. So what happens is salt drags out the sugars from vegetables and fruit. And those sugars feed the bacteria, lactobacteria, that is presented on the skin of the fruit and vegetables. And then it turns it into lactic acid. That's why ferments are sour. So when people say, oh, so it's a pickle. Not really. Pickling is also a preserving technique, but we use vinegar and sugar to make pickles, which I'm not a big fan of because it's not very healthy. Whereas ferments, they just develop this natural sour flavor. And then there is another beautiful fermentation technique, which I'm absolutely obsessed with at the moment, is koji fermentation. It's also ancient and comes to us from Japan and China. And it's a completely different type of fermentation and completely different type of bacteria. And So basically, the spores that are called asparagus or rosé, they're grown on some sort of grain or seed and turn into this moldy, fluffy sort of cake that is used as a base to make miso and soy sauce and fish sauce and all sorts of different things. We didn't even know how are they made. So it's actually coming into trend at the moment. But I see it as, so I use this fermentation method to process a lot of my what is called waste and turn different peels and offcuts into incredible products using koji fermentation. It's the possibilities there are infinite. It's incredible. So I'm a little bit obsessed. And then there are certain other fermentation methods which I do use sometimes, like making vinegar, also out of scraps. So the main fermentation method I use is lacto fermentation, but I'm actually refocusing a little bit into koji because it's just way too interesting.
The power of fermenting is not only in preservation or the uniqueness of product, but the ability to reduce waste too.
Think about a beautiful, humble beetroot. I grow it in my garden, and then it becomes a fermented recipe, right? Let's say beetroot sauerkraut. And then I look at it and I break it down. So what's left after I make the main product? All right, so I've got some beetroot peels and I've got some outer leaves of cabbage, right? What do I do with this? So beetroot peels become beetroot kvass, which is a beautiful fermented beetroot drink. Outer leaves of cabbage become also a different product. I ferment them separately in a salty solution, and then I use that brine, when it's fully fermented, I use that brine to ferment mushrooms. And those fermented outer leaves and fermented beetroot peels that made me kvass, I dehydrate them and turn them into a fermented kraut seasoning. So, and that can be applied to everything, every single ingredient that I use. So this product that I didn't invent it, but it's just so beautiful and so unique. It's a seasoning. It's seasonal seasoning made from ferment. Either it's mixed with some salt or it's just a seasoning mixed with different ingredients. Like at the moment, I have so much turmeric in my garden. It's not funny. It grows like a weed. So I look at it as a loose end. But I don't use it in my recipes much. So it just sits there in the garden, just sort of a waste in a way. So I'm thinking to myself, what can I make with it so I can use a lot of it, and it's also fermented. So what I did, I fermented the whole lot and I dehydrated it and turned it into powder, mixed it with salt, mixed it with holy basil, and it turned into this beautiful, most beautiful seasoning. It surprisingly took off, and people absolutely love it. And a seasonal approach to it as well. So I'm actually thinking to distribute that product Australian-wide because it's scalable. There is fermented vegetables, as I said. There are lots of different difficulties, and I believe that we need to eat fermented vegetables locally and seasonally, whereas salt and seasoning is it's shelf stable, so it'd be easier to make business there.
The move to Byron and into fermenting has given Katerina a mission and a sense of purpose.
It definitely made me more humble and more patient. And more caring, and as a person, because it's the business that it's the product that is designed to help people to be healthier. But also, it's a very humble business. And it's very creative. So I kind of challenge myself every day, looking at the produce and thinking, okay, what do I do with this? It's a big challenge, and I grow every day as a chef professionally. So it's definitely one of those businesses when you need to be very patient, because nothing happens in 1 minute. And you just need to adapt to circumstances as well. It's like weather factor, and then you start again and you look around and see, okay, what do I do with the resources I have? It's definitely made me more creative.
Byron Fermentary has given Katerina a greater connection to the land and what it produces.
I see people's faces at the farmers market. They're grateful, they're happy, they're healthy. They come back and they say, oh, your gut tonic or whatever, your product changed my life. I can digest food better. I can feel better. My skin has improved. And it's humbling, but it's also makes me very proud and motivates me to keep going and do better and do more. And I can see how community has changed in the last 5 years. We're more educated. We are we're more positive, in a way, positive for a better future. Yeah, it's very motivating. Certain things I'm changing in my business. Like I said, I'm refocusing a little bit into shelf-stable products, not depending as much on my garden, because it has been really difficult. But overall, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and I'm very, very happy.
With a need to be more sustainable, brands like Byron Fermentary are paving the way for a more sustainable future. This is The Producers, a Deep in the Weeds production. I'm Anthony Huckstep. Stay tuned as we share the stories of producers, farmers, makers, and growers, the true lifeblood of the food industry. Follow us on Instagram at Producers Podcast, or email us at producerspodcast@deepintheweeds.com.au.